These are going to be fighters that I swear are doomed every single time they fight, but they never are. These are fighters that for the last maybe like 2 or 3 years I've been thinking are entering their Celtic Shack era. But every single time that they get a new scheduled fight, and I'm like, this is the one. This is where they get exposed or where their recession begins. And even if I'm reluctant about acknowledging that, I still acknowledge it, and I'm wrong, dude. So let's talk about it. The first fighter that I'm going to mention right now actually makes me nervous because I'm a Magnum fanboy. Hey, bro, we're only copping Magnums in the store. Bro, we rock with Magnum Zhang Weili, bro. Zhang Magnum Weili, bro. Come on. Bro, Valentina Shevchenko, tell me you're not part of the camp of people that ever since the Alexa Grasso fight where she lost, ever since the draw, dude, I've literally just been part of this camp that this woman is like, she's receding. Because in the Talia Santos fight, she always has like these weird IQ moments where she just kind of scares everybody by doing something like out of the ordinary for her as like this crazy high level technician and nearly losing the fight. And against Alexa Grasso in the rematch, whenever she threw that dumb spinning kick and got her back taken and choked, she actually did mess up really badly. She lost to Alexa Grasso of all fighters and then won the trilogy in the rematch. And she handily beat that girl whenever they did fight for the third time. And that compounds with a fight that she had with Talia Santos, as I had mentioned, where she went life and death with Talia Santos, who accomplished literally nothing in the UFC before she got cut from the organization. And I think she popped for like steroid use in PFL right afterwards. So, I mean, just really weird stuff out of her. She beat the crap out of Manon Fior, and I'd kind of gotten it through my head because Manon Fior had no success in that fight, that she was bad and only over-relied like on her physicality in order to win fights against girls who weren't Valentina. And then she fights with Jasmine Jasudavicius and knocks her out in the first round. So maybe it is that Valentina Shevchenko really is cold like that. But I just have been in denial for so long and not wanting to accept her as #1 pound-for-pound woman fighter on the roster, dude. I really hope she doesn't beat Weili. I'm gonna review the footage of both of their last few fights to get my predictions together for the matchup. But like, I don't know, man. I always smell a fish whenever Valentina Shevchenko competes. I'm like, is this going to be the time where she sells it? Now we have Azamat Murzakonov. I swear this man will get chinned every single time that he gets a new fight announced. I'm like, okay, Brinson Ribeiro off of a 1-year layoff. Ribeiro at least got to a finish over, I think he fought Deir Nurgoje. And then he was able to get that guy up out of there. Nurgoje is bad, dude. Like, he's really bad. And I thought that they had similar builds, Nurgoje and Azamat Murzakonov, to the point where I could be like, you know, maybe Murzakonov lost a step in the time away from the sport. He was serving a steroid ban. He's not cheating anymore, so that's definitely got to have some type of impact on his performance or ability to perform post coming back from his layoff. And it just didn't. This man doesn't stop for anything. And he's on a KO streak, too. Look at the way that he just, like, walks away from the pile of bones and refuse that he leaves behind that was his opponent in every single one of these matchups. And it's insane because he's crazy athletic for being built like a milk bag, too. This dude is so dangerous, potentially one of the most dangerous fighters at 205, and you would never guess just by looking at him. If anything, he kind of looks like one of the 5'10" light heavyweights that you would be used to seeing out of like the 2000s era, like the early 2000s, late 2000s. And he's like more successful than any other up-and-coming contender in the rankings, which is ridiculous. This guy trains with Habib in Dagestan. I had locked in Rakic as my pick for my predictions during UFC 321, and then I saw a video of Habib giving a lecture to his entire camp and directly addressing Azamat Murzakonov. Being like, welcome to our camp, Azamat Murzakonov. You trained well today. And I was like, great, now my pick is absolute garbage. And it ended up not hitting because that boy chinned Rakic. And not only did he chin him, he just straight up shadow realmed Rakic. Rakic shooting double leg takedowns in their fight. I don't know, dude. I'm not going to go as far as to say something like he can't keep getting away with this because I think it's kind of funny as far as like the success he's been able to have at 205. But if he does lose, I wonder who the guy who beats him will look like. I wonder what like form that will take. Because dude, if he chins Yuri, like, he's got to be next for a title. And I feel like he could get a cheeky win over like him or Ankalaev to put himself right there in contention to fight with Alex Pereira, who he might also knock out. Which, I mean, like, that's a reality of this entire thing. Azamat Murzakonov may become champion of this division because he has wrestling. He just hasn't had to rely on it at all because he's just been sparking people too quickly. Next, we have the king of the Apex, the king of Canada, the king of Australia. And it's funny because I always reluctantly go against Neil Magny in the fights, namely just the last fight that he was in against Jake Matthews. I was like, this is it. This is the end of Neil Magny. His fight with Alessio Zaleski dos Santos was way too close. Jake Matthews is in Australia. It's going to be a clean sweep for Matthews in his home country. And I'm sad because I like Magny. But he's away from the Apex. That's where he gets all of his power from. He's not going to win against Matthews in Australia. And he wins against Matthews in Australia. That's the funny bit. He goes to Canada, fights Mike Malott, this guy who has that entire audience in his palms. A lot of physical ability. The guy is jacked, too. Exploits him for having low grappling cardio and TKOs him in front of all of his boys. Back in the day, Neil Magny was getting cheeky decision wins over Jeff Neal, which, like, people, whenever I first found out that that was a thing that happened, I almost lost my mind, dude. I had to watch the entire fight back, and you can find it on YouTube. It's a funny watch. Neil Magny is the master of executing game plans. Nobody in the UFC at his level of competition, which is like a pretty high level, dude, because he's only really getting beaten by dudes who are next up in the division. If you're not one of these special fighters, Neil Magny beats you, dude. He cheese grates you across the course of like 2.5 rounds and then gets to a late finish. And it's this way every time. And he knows exactly how to game plan against every single opponent that he faces so that he can make this a reality, which is hilarious. I might honestly make a claim like this guy has some of the highest fight IQ out of any fighter active on the roster. He's about as good of a grappler as you can get at 170 pounds, too. This dude is ridiculous. The path he takes to winning all of his fights is struggle, grind, and shine. It always looks kind of weird for him at a certain point, and then he locks in and then gets to a stoppage. Just use a finisher, too, which is the funniest bit, is he not only wins these fights, is he's often finishing them. He's like 38. He's fighting these young, up-and-coming contenders in the division, and he's not even crazy outmatched against them. Again, if you're able to stop Magny, or if you beat him by a decision even, just by outskilling him, then, like, you're good. And you're undoubtedly meant for the rankings. The same thing can be said about Raoni Barcelos, who, over the weekend, he had beaten Ricky Simón in the Apex. My goodness, what a high-level display of skills Raoni Barcelos put on the board against Ricky Simón. Because before we had known this guy as like the grappling gatekeeper. If you're a striker, they're going to test your grappling in a fight with a guy like Raoni Barcelos. And you're either going to do well enough in the stand-up in order to win the fight, or you're going to have the grappling to counter his grappling, which, I mean, it's a very high level of both things that he does in the stand-up and in the wrestling and jiu-jitsu. He packed out Talbot and he packed out Garbrandt, two fighters who we knew had the stand-up but didn't have a ground game to match their boxing and kickboxing. And then Ricky Simón, who I was expecting to get a sleepy knockout over Raoni Barcelos, who just ends up getting pieced up for 15 minutes, which is nuts. This guy is very technical stand-up, great head movement, slick defense, good counters, excellent volume. The dude is 38 years old, still fighting his ass off. If you are one of these like stand-up fighters who gets match made with this dude as like a test, you gotta have at least the ability to scramble in order to not get subbed or to get dominated across a decision. But like really subbed, because this dude he's always active and trying to search for a way to stop the fight. And he's just good enough in the stand-up to be competitive with these guys who fancy themselves as strikers to get the fight to the ground every single time. And that's where he shows levels. But against other grapplers, he's able to show levels to them in the stand-up, which is just, it's weird, man. I wonder who the next grappling gatekeeper at bantamweight who's fit to replace him is going to be. Maybe it's Bryce Mitchell. I thought it would have been Ricky Simón, all things considered, with the power and the knowledge of wrestling. And, I mean, the boxing that Ricky Simón has displayed in the past. I thought that he would have beaten Raoni Barcelos, but he did not. So, I mean, that definitely threw me for a loop. This guy probably has about, like, 2 more years left of really good fights that he can put on, or fraud checkings left in him. Next, we have Nathaniel Wood. I mean, I'm not really sure if I even consider this guy enough to say that I think that he's doomed whenever he gets a fight announced. I know it's going to be a hard fight, but I can only speak from like the last experience that I had of watching him fight with Jose Miguel Delgado, and also whenever he had gotten the Morgan Charrier fight announced, I was like, Nathaniel Wood might be like grilled in both of these fights. because he's a point fighter, but I think that's more credence to his style, which is very controlled and consistent. There's no flashiness. There's no there's nothing that really jumps off the page as far as Nathaniel Wood as a fighter. He just is, you know? And he drops his opponents. He doesn't really have the best finishing instincts. His big moments that he scores in rounds that come in the form of knockdowns are really just for netting 10-9s. He's not really trying to stop fights whenever he does have momentum shifts. He just rides that momentum through however much is left in the fight in order to comfortably win. Most of the time, it's either a unanimous decision or a 29-28. And it's a close fight, but he's beating these explosive young finishers who are mostly stopping their performances before they reach Nathaniel Wood as a challenge, and they don't pass him. This guy's called himself the prospect for 7 years, and I mean, he's beaten prospects the entire time. Charrier, Delgado, Charles Jourdain back in the day. He's a tenured veteran who's been around for a long time. He made a fan out of me in his last performance, even though, I mean, it was a very close fight. Nathaniel Wood, he hung in there, and he did what he had to do to win, in accordance with what the judges saw that night. He got his freaking face smashed, and he still didn't bow out of the fight. That counts for something as far as me and my viewership goes. Next, we have Charles Oliveira, and in my opinion, I feel like Charles Oliveira has reached a dead end in this division post the Islam Makhachev fight. Whenever he got the title taken away from him the first time, I was like, okay, this guy is never sniffing the belt again. Because he had Arman there, and he fought Arman and he lost to Arman, and then they gave him the title shot to fight against Ilia Topuria, and people were literally trying to get a bandwagon together for Charles Oliveira again. And it's just out of their love for him because he is a fan favorite, but for some reason, I'm always expecting that he loses a step. And things just keep on happening, like the loss to Arman, right? And then I'm like, okay, well, this guy's for sure going to fall off. And then he fights Chandler again. And I'm like, okay, so I mean, he beats Chandler. What do we even do with Charles from here? So maybe Chandler wins in the rematch. Because, I mean, the first fight, he got very close. He just didn't pace himself and he burnt out. What if he did pace himself better in the rematch and he ends up finishing Charles? Let's go for that. And I pick Chandler in the rematch. And then Charles wins. So he's right there. This whole time, he's really only losing to the best of the division. I most recently picked Mateusz Gamrot to beat this guy under the notion that he lost his chin and made too quick of a turnaround after UFC 317. And he absolutely sauced on Mateusz Gamrot. He ate the Topuria KO like some cookies. And now he's kind of reinvigorated by the prospects of fighting with Max Holloway for the BMF title. And if he can grab that, then, I mean, I guess that counts as a belt. I mean, they treat it like a title, like a legitimate UFC title. So, I mean, if he's able to snatch it off of Max, and there's not really anything else I can say. But as far as UFC gold goes, I mean, you could say the champion has a name as much as you want. Charles Oliveira is never going to touch that strap, man. For as long as Ilia Topuria is a 155 champion, he had his shot. But that's the thing. I can't really say from here he gets worse, and that's the reason why he won't become champion. Because, dude, this guy is aging. He's aging so well. If anything, he's just competing at the same level that he was competing while he was champion. And his skill set is his skill set. So whenever he's outmatched, then he's going to lose the fight. But he doesn't ever diminish or, lose quality in between losses or even his wins, too. He just is Charles Oliveira. And I respect it, dude. At the very least, I respect it. Even if I'm not a glazer of his, I do respect the fact that he is so talented and his skill set hasn't shown any signs of expiring. The same thing could kind of be said about Max Holloway. Gaethje versus Holloway at UFC 300 felt like a human sacrifice in my opinion. Whenever I first got that matchup, I was like, dude, Gaethje is about to do such bad things to Max Holloway. I don't know why he accepted this fight, but stylistically, Max Holloway beats Justin Gaethje every single time. I just didn't really see it like that. I thought that there would be way too much of a rift in physicality. Max Holloway having gained weight to compete at 155 on another occasion against Dustin Poirier and getting completely outgunned and manhandled in that fight. But Max Holloway, whenever he does make that weight gain properly and he becomes a lightweight the right way, he has knockout power now. But for some reason, I still viewed Max Holloway as a freebie for Dustin Poirier in his retirement. And that was another mistake that I had made because I thought because Dustin Poirier beat him at featherweight on one occasion and they had their last fight at 155, that Max Holloway was the same fighter that he was whenever he fought Dustin Poirier all those years ago for that interim title. And I thought that the rehydration wouldn't have much bearing over his durability, which he would have lost after getting KO'd the way that he did against Ilia Topuria. But he too ate the Ilia Topuria KO like some cookies. And the BMF title run has kind of reinvigorated his career. He has a lot more fun fights to be made for him in this division, namely against Charles Oliveira like we were just talking about. But he has like 2 all-time wins over lightweights. Max Holloway, I'm done sleeping on this guy. I thought before that it was kind of over and that this move up to 155 wouldn't bear as much fruit as it has for him, and he wouldn't have been half as successful as he ended up being at this new weight class. But he made the jump properly, and like he looks like an absolute baller at lightweight. So that's going to take us on to the last entry of the list, Derrick Lewis. This dude just refuses to be washed up. He's 40 years old, and he still has the ability to KO any heavyweight. I thought after his 2 losses that he took to Cyril Gane and also Tai Tuivasa, it was just kind of over. But no, dude, every single time that I want to write this dude off, he's always taking his shorts off in the octagon, hitting that celebration on a man that he just completely separated from his consciousness, and that's like a guaranteed thing. He destroyed a 6'7" Brazilian prospect over the summer. And like that was something that completely came out of left field as far as I was concerned. I was like, bro, it's Thaleson Teixeira's time. He beat one of the Tapas. And now he's going to beat Derrick Lewis, and it's going to be funny. And look at how flabbergasted Thaleson Teixeira looked whenever he ate a big over. It was like a lead overhand that Derrick Lewis just dropped right on him as he was exiting the pocket. This guy is legendary boxing. He's a knockout king. He's never in over his head. He just wins fights and takes his pants off. This is one of those guys who just kind of found the fountain of youth as far as like longevity in the sport goes. He's always going to be successful as an MMA fighter. Yeah, so those are going to be my picks, you guys. Let me know of some different fighters who you thought were completely washed in the past and they just ended up proving you wrong. That's going to be my list. Make sure that you've liked, comment, and subscribed if you made it to this point in the video. I will catch you fellas in the next one. Peace out.